my name is Jake. I'm 39 years old. I was born in '85 and had a really good childhood growing up. My parents brought me up in church, and about the time I was 9 or 10 years old, they actually ended up separating, and it took its toll on me. I found myself like trying to seek out some sort of attention, from either of them, to no fault of their own. They were living their life and trying to pick the pieces up, but I ended up finding myself looking in the wrong circles and kind of getting attention the wrong way. So by the age of 10, I actually, I tried crack cocaine for the first time, and it just kind of progressed into, worse circles, worse decisions for myself. And around that time, I found myself, questioning, I don't think there is a God, because if there is a God, then surely he wouldn't allow this in my life, right? The people I love the most to be hurting and hurting one another. So I found myself, professing to be an atheist at that point. And honestly, a good majority of my childhood, that's what it was. I was searching for something, trying to fill a void that just didn't, I couldn't find something that fit. So eventually I got to the place to where I had tried heroin, and unfortunately for me, it was something that removed me far enough from myself and what I felt, the pain that I'd experienced in life, that I finally found myself numb, and I was comfortable with that. Realistically, it didn't take long before that progressed to, daily use. And I was doing things that I swore I would never do. I became someone I knew I could never allow myself to become, but, through that, it was very unfortunate how quickly, you allow things like that to become part of your life. And, it didn't take too much longer before I found myself completely broken, and I was ready to give up. I was using on a daily basis and hurting the people closest to me, and I got to a place to where it was either this one's going to be the greatest experience of my life, or I'm not going to come back from it, and I was okay with either outcome. And that's a terrible place to get in life. So at some point in time, I got connected with a 12-step program, and I was working with him, my sponsor. I was living with him, and I ended up falling again. I relapsed, I overdosed, and through that process, I was actually connected. My mom met somebody that was connected to the Teen Challenge, and Pastor Bolin was getting ready to open the doors to the induction center, the home center for our program, and the paint wasn't dry yet, the carpet wasn't laid, but my mom made it very clear that if there isn't a place for my son to go, he's not going to be alive. So they graciously opened their doors to me, and I was their first student in their program, so to speak, for this induction phase. So it was my goal to make it limp through a couple months and go back to life. And one of the cool things about Adult and Teen Challenge is the staff there, have all successfully completed the program. So, when you have a conversation with a staff member there, it's from a genuine place, it's from a place of empathy. And so there's not a whole lot you can say to a Teen Challenge staff member that, is going to phase them in a way that's going to change their mind about this being a horrible decision in your life, that you want to quit and leave early. And so, I had a staff member sit in front of me and say probably the simplest yet most profound statement I ever heard in my entire life, which was, you're already here, why not try? And, for me, in my mindset, it was like, well, I've been here and I haven't used in 2 months, so I have been trying. I've been doing everything I'm supposed to do. And he said, no, like, have Have you tried praise and worship? Have you found yourself, praying and calling out to God? Are you applying the things that we're actually teaching here, or are you just here? And, it hit me that I hadn't tried those things, because it's impossible to do something you don't understand or comprehend or even at that point believe in. So, I found myself doing one of those like Hail Mary prayers where you hit your knee and make sure nobody's looking, and said, God, if you exist, tomorrow you're going to send me a convertible with a bag of cheeseburgers in the front, and and then I'll know. And of course, 7 a.m. I stood by the door, and 7:05 there's no convertible, there's no cheeseburgers. So in my mind, that was the whole. I've proved it. I've debunked this whole God thing, and I can move on with my life. But we watched this sermon in one of the classes by a preacher in Georgia. His name's Lou Giglio, and he was talking about how he wants to follow Christians around with this little bell, and every time they pray and they ask God to do this, and they say, God be with me in this, or God bless this, he wants to ring the bell and just continue just to highlight how often that's something that we do. And through that, I gained this new perspective on what prayer was. And the first prayer that I really laid out there was one of those toes in the water kind of thing, and I realized that I was okay, and nothing hurt me, lightning didn't strike me, and so it opened up this opportunity for a genuine prayer. And at Adult and Teen Challenge, we have a prayer tower where the guys are able to kind of break away from the dorms and spend some time with the Lord. And so one afternoon, I find myself up there, and I started praying to God, and I was thanking Him for things rather than asking Him for things. And so the equation for prayer had changed in my head. But He revealed Himself to me in a way that I could finally comprehend at Adult and Teen Challenge. God made Himself very real in that moment to me, and that was the day that everything kind of turned around. I'll spend the rest of my life, professing and proclaiming that Christ is Lord because of what I experienced at Adult and Teen Challenge, and the diligence and the hard work that the staff pour into the students there. It really creates an atmosphere for growth, and the structure that I think a lot of us all crave and truly desire deep down inside, coming from that world. And God gave me everything I ever wanted in life, and I didn't deserve any of it, but He gave it freely for me. And today, I have the honor of working at Adult and Teen Challenge, and I'm the academic director, and I'm also the intake coordinator, so I get to talk with these guys trying to come in and change their life, and they're just as lost as I was, and it's such an amazing experience that God would entrust me with that opportunity. I'm a husband. I'm married to an amazing woman. We have a beautiful baby girl, and she just turned 1, and I was fully restored to my oldest daughter. Everything that I wanted, God has given me in my life. He's fully answered every prayer, and now I'm able to spend my days pouring back into these men and showing them that God can and will give you the desires of your heart if you put Him first. I always land on Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And truly, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that, through Adult and Teen Challenge and the relationships that are developed there, that you can have the desires of your heart.